if you have an advice to them, young people globally who want to be like Elon Musk, what's your advice to them?
I think advice, I mean, if you want to make progress in things, I think that the best analytical framework for understanding the future is physics. I'd recommend studying the thinking process around physics, like not the equations. I mean, the equations certainly they're helpful, but the way of thinking in physics is it's the best framework for understanding things that are counterintuitive, and always taking the position that you're to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong over time.
I'm Carrie Faye, and I live in Denver, Colorado. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Musk. We do have a lot of questions from 13, 14-year-olds. So I'm just going to pick one and ask you. It's from a teenager, and her name is Dara, and she wants to be an engineer and build starships and robots, and her dream is working for SpaceX. What should she focus on to be an engineer?
Well, I think there's all kinds of engineering that's needed. So you don't have to be an aerospace engineer. You could be in electronics, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. You could be software engineer. I mean, there's a lot of engineering, basically almost any kind of engineering. We'll need chemical engineering, I think, also for figuring out how to make a good propellant depot, or I should say propellant production plant. Yeah, I think physics in general is a good background for thinking. I just generally recommend people take physics courses because physics has the best tools for critical thinking.
How do you manage to dive so deeply into so many different engineering challenges?
Well, I studied physics, and I'd certainly strongly recommend physics as a good grounding to understand the nature of reality. I mean, physics is fundamentally just understanding how does the universe actually work. And then that's a good foundation for then a variety of engineering disciplines. And I think also the analytical principles, the sort of analytical constructs used in physics apply to basically anything. Physics developed all these ways of thinking, like first principles thinking, thinking about things in the limit of high and low, testing your hypothesis. It's the scientific principle, essentially. These things are incredibly helpful in all arenas. It's just most people tend to think by analogy or by comparison with something that already exists. And this is a sort of a mental shortcut that requires less brain strain, but it does not. It's hard to get fundamental insights unless you think about things from a first principle standpoint.
And the first principle standpoint is kind of deductive thinking that almost has like the force of a natural law, of a physical law of making things happen because they need to happen.
No, first principles thinking is just saying, okay, what are the most fundamental truths that we know about any given situation?